You're listening to Find the Good News, Episode 17, The Butisattva, featuring Elizabeth McDaniel. This episode of Find the Good News is sponsored by Parker Brand Creative Services, a branding agency that thinks sideways, pushes forward, and gets your brand up. Check out our work at parkerbrandup.com. Would you like to help make sure I'm asking my guests the really good questions? Just visit findthegood.news and click the questions tab. I'll see if I can get your question dropped in the fishbowl. Each episode, my guests will dive deep, select 3 random questions, and if yours is selected, I'll ask it on the show. That's findthegood.news. Buti Yoga. This was something I'd never heard of nor seen before, but when I did, 4 words came to mind: refreshing, energy, joy, and freedom. This was something I really felt that Find the Good News listeners would enjoy. After visiting with Elizabeth McDaniel, the founder and teacher of Buti Yoga in Lake Charles, Louisiana, I can easily use the same 4 words to describe her. Like most people, there was so much more to discover about Elizabeth than what I knew before she came to the Good News studio, and Buti Yoga was just the start. She shares the experiences that shaped her life and the pivots she made when shifts occurred. Beyond Buti Yoga, Elizabeth reveals the new ways she's working to help people find balance and bring harmony to all facets of their lives through her ontology training. The energy and joy she brought to the table was very refreshing, and I believe that her efforts are already helping people break new ground and find new freedoms in their lives. If that's what you're looking for, refreshment, energy, joy, and freedom, then meeting Elizabeth is a good place to start.
Wake up, it's morning. You're dreaming up a story. I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep, on the path to your deliverance, and a holy wall of light pouring through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you just want to shut it all down and get no news at all. With Find the Good News, I aim to change that by focusing on good people doing good work. I visit with artists, educators, civic and spiritual leaders, musicians, business owners, students, volunteers, and everyday citizens who are using their creativity, resources, and talents to bring hope and happiness to their corner of the world. In each episode, I dig into the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have street-level conversations about relatable things going on in their lives, discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that are anchoring them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of news in the world. My name is Oran Parker, and I'm going to find the good.
And I love you just as well.
This show is all about people getting to really meet people.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's no big brainstorm. Getting to know people is nothing new.
Yeah.
But I just kind of felt like there wasn't enough good information in one place. You know, you have to kind of go out and curate it. And so my thinking was, well, I'm kind of already doing that online in my own life. I wanted to redirect the stream, so to speak, and just put more positive things in front of myself, because you know, all the platforms that we use and really the news, it's so sensational to talk about.
I agree.
Negative stuff. And I mean, even, and not to even get political, but like the way politicians function now too is like, well, how radical can I be? You know, in almost a negative way, and just kind of get people's negative emotions all fired up. And I thought, man, it actually works, because I don't want to be that way, but I could still feel it affecting me, you know, and my own temperament and the way I was looking at the world. And I thought, man, I used to not be this way.
Yeah.
You know? So I think I've soaked up so much of that over the years unconsciously. And I thought, what if I just redirect it completely? And that's where this whole idea for the show came from. You know, everybody's got gifts, which you obviously have gifts. I mean, looking at what you're doing, I mean, that's obviously a gift and a talent and something that you work at. And I thought, you know, I don't know anymore what my gifts might be, but I do enjoy talking to people.
Yeah.
And I get a lot out of it. And I thought, hey, selfishly, why don't I just
Well, and just making that mental shift of saying you're going to shift the information you're putting out or what you're exposing yourself to. I'm a coach as well in the field of ontology, and so we talk a lot about language and how language is generative, not completely descriptive. Like, we create the worlds we live in based off of what we say, and the words that we think and that are in our brains, that's what we actually see in the world. And so that's what you attract to you.
That totally makes sense. I mean, it's interesting because when I was younger, I loved to read like rabidly, and I found that I guess my lexicon was broader. Mm-hmm. As I got older, my lexicon got more narrow, and I thought that was an odd thing. And it was just because I stopped doing certain things. I stopped doing those things that were putting information in my mind, and I stopped growing, and I thought, that's a really unfortunate thing. So now, in the last several years, just trying to consciously pause on words, instead of blowing through and going, okay, what does that mean? And then digging further, and then just seeing that whole, like I used to do, where the word cracks open and just leads you down all these different,
Alice in Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole.
Right. Sure. Well, speaking of words, some of the people who've come on the show, other people have recommended, and then some people I've just discovered. And I really, honestly, I think since the first time I contacted you, I can't remember how you were put in front of me. But what happened was, and I want to know how to say this. Is it Buti? Buti. That's what I thought. Okay. And I thought, okay, I've never heard of this before. Yeah. And it may be very popular. I don't know, but I had never heard of it. And your Facebook feed had all these videos. And I said, okay, well, I'm familiar with yoga. And I started watching the videos. And in fact, I wrote it down because there were 4 words, just real simple, that like after I watched them, I thought: refreshing, energy, joy, and freedom. Yes. And is that...
It does. So Buti is an Indian word that means the cure is hidden within.
Okay.
And so that's the origin of it. And so Buti Yoga kind of takes yoga and twists it upside down,
Yeah.
We focus a lot on energy work and moving energy throughout the chakras, and there's lots of grounding and release that happens within that. But basically, at the core of it, it's a power vinyasa class, and we blend tribal dance and plyometrics within the Vinyasa Flow. So
what's the Vinyasa Flow? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so a Vinyasa Flow is just a typical yoga, flow through down dog, a plank series, chaturanga, cobra, you move through warrior. And typical yoga is very linear, very structured. You would move from a right side to a left side. And it's a pretty standard set. Buti Yoga, we mix that up. We won't necessarily go straight from left to right. You might start on the left side, do a whole bunch of dancing in between, finish up on the right. It's not choreographed in any kind of way. We just make a playlist, and it's very freeing as an instructor to just get up there every time and not know what's going to come out, and just to fill off the energy of the people who are in the class and where you are in that day. And it creates a bond with everyone.
I can imagine. I mean, whenever, just again, not being in the room, but looking at the videos, I don't know. I don't even know how to put my finger on what I felt, but I just thought, this hits a tribal nerve for sure. And this is before I've even looked it up. I thought, well, I don't know what I'm looking at here. But now listening to you explain that makes sense what I'm seeing. You're seeing all the classic yoga postures, but like you said, you're not going through a formal...
So we still hit all the postures and you hold them, but then the cardio bursts in between, you get these oxytocin releases. And so then you're able to sit in a posture and sort of feel that. And then you start moving again. And so it's just this constant energy flow throughout the entire time.
Well, then the beats of the music you're using, that's a totally different...
That's what stirs the class, I mean, I never know going into a class what's going to come out or what the class is going to be like. I mean, there's definitely, I have my style. I mean, I have a background in kickboxing and belly dancing. And so those elements in my classes come out, whereas someone who has a different background that's more, all tribal dance, you're going to get a different style from them.
Well, my wife was watching them with me, and because I immediately, when I saw the videos and then started reading the testimonials, which I'd like to actually talk about today, first person I thought of was my wife. I was like, she would love this. She would love this. And every time I watched another one, I said she would definitely love this, because she used to take belly dance, and I could see those elements of that in there. And then when she was watching them with me, she was saying, oh, I see, that and this, and pointing little things out, but it's such a fusion.
Yeah, it's a few. I remember the first time I took a class, I signed up. Just a backstory, I found Buti on Instagram. I saw clips, and my background's in Bikram type style yoga, which is hot, 100 degree, where you hold postures for a minute long, and so it's really strength enduring and meditative. And so I decided to sign up for Buti Yoga RYT, which is basically a yoga instructor, become a registered yoga instructor, and without ever having taken a class. And so I tried one online before I went to the actual training, and I was like, what was that? Like this, nothing that I had ever done before. It blended everything. It was such a release for me. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you'd never taken any yoga classes?
I just not Buti Yoga.
No,
so
I got you. Okay.
I went on this trip 2 years ago to Morocco and Paris by myself, and after a divorce and moving back home and realizing that I was just going to chase whatever made me happy, and I'd always wanted to be a yoga instructor. So I had taken yoga, that hot style, for a couple years. And then I'd come across clips of Buti Yoga and saw that they had a RYT training program. So I signed up for their training program without ever having taken a Buti Yoga class. It's
interesting how, and this is maybe way off, maybe what you want to talk about, but you said something that I always find is a key in my life, because I was divorced as well. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting what that does to you.
Yeah.
How, it can shift you into a whole new direction that even a lot of times I hear people say, well, they pick up where they left off perhaps, mm-hmm. and go back. But some people, it's like opens new things up that just they had no clue.
Yeah.
It's almost like there was a part of their evolution, I guess, that sort of stops maybe, and you don't get to go down these certain paths anymore sometimes. And for me, that was kind of what happened too. So you land in a different place.
It's interesting to see, how life has drifted for me. I was with my ex-husband at 17, married at 20, went to pharmacy school, 20s were definitely different than what they are now. And I found this coaching work that I do in ontology. I went through a course of that starting in when I was about 30, I want to say. And so that really shifted my life in a lot of ways. And just the way that I move in the world, the way I observe myself, the way I interact with people, which then led me to finding Buti. And, those things wouldn't have opened up had not all the other things happened.
So interacting with people, that's obviously it's important to me. And you said it. So how is Buti Yoga and your path, how is interacting with people important to you in that regard?
So important, it's so different. So before Buti and before this phase in my life, I was I was very shy, lots of social anxiety. Like it would be very difficult for me to physically speak. My throat chakra was closed off. Didn't have very many female friends. I was a wife. It was me and my husband and our life together. And post Education for Living, the ontology work helped me open up some of those walls that I was holding up and realizing what sort of insecurities I had or vulnerabilities I was not allowing myself to have.
Yeah.
And then through Buti and the connections, that's the best thing about the trainings is, I know women now all over the country, really world. I was in a training in London in June, and I'm going to one in Berlin in February, and I'm meeting some girls that I know from there in Canada. And so that's what's really opened up for me. The connections, the amount of women and the close women friends that I have now has expanded tremendously.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a whole totally different life.
Completely.
Yeah, I understand what you mean about being shy and stuff. Mm-hmm. I still deal with a lot of that. I talk about that on the show quite often because I have to work at it to be out there and be up front and to actually lead a thing. But that happens so often mm-hmm. that I'm in that position, which a lot of folks find strange because it's like you're doing that a lot for somebody who's saying that they're not really the right person to be out there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't come easy. It takes practice. It takes work. Yeah. And just talking to you now, you seem very assertive and comfortable. Yeah. And then hearing you say that and then seeing what you post, to me, that's a big difference.
Yeah,
right?
For Buti, it's like we call Buti like a Buti high after you teach, and especially for someone like me and my past of being so shy and very I'm a pharmacist, so type A personality, to be able to just let myself be completely creative and in the moment, and in those classes, the more you can get out of your head and into your body, the better they are. the feeling I get after it, I'm usually up for out. I can't sleep at night because I'm just on such of like energetic high.
Yeah, I bet. And you're probably seeing, are you still a pharmacist? I mean, do you still do that?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do that and this, and I'm assuming.
And the coaching stuff. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you got a full plate. Yeah. Do you have children?
I do not.
Do you not have children? So you have a little more time to do that then. I mean, without, I have children, and I will say that, and that is a joy, but there are times when you're going, man, I don't have the time to take those energies. A lot of your energies go towards the little ones. So it's nice when somebody who doesn't have children is actually using those energies though to help other people. I mean, that's what it seems like Buti's doing.
Yeah. And I mean, I really, like, I don't have cable. And so all of my, my time I utilize. So I work full time. I'm, with Buti, I'm a master trainee. So I dislocated my elbow a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So my last phase of that is to co-lead a training, and then I'll be starting to lead trainings as a master trainer. So there's been a lot of me traveling this year for weekend trainings to get certified for that, plus my coaching course. And it's been a busy year, but it's been fun. I have realized that I do better the busier I am. Like, I like to be moving.
You ride the wave of what the energy, right?
As long as I'm happy on it and it's going, like, we're going to keep on kicking.
Yeah, well, that's good. And where are y'all at in Lake Charles? Where does
So there's a couple, I teach an international dance company on Sunday and Monday nights.
Okay.
And then I have one of my students who got certified covers for some of mine. Megan teaches at Yoga Y'all Thursday and Fridays. And then Debbie teaches at Enos Doorbone Ward 3 Center on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. I mean, we have a couple other people who are certified who aren't teaching consistent classes yet, but we're all scattered around. So they're almost every day, I think, except Saturdays.
And so do you choose, like you said, it's unchoreographed. Do you have a plan when you go in, or do you just kind of feel the energy of the room?
No plan. I mean, the biggest thing is making a playlist. So I definitely have a flow of like how, I like to start, like where I like to get a, really hard tribal cardio song, and then how I flow from there. But really I let the music guide the playlist, and then the music guides me in class. A lot of times I don't know what's coming up next, and we're in a posture and how do I want to move, and that's just what happens, and try to be creative within flows.
Sure. Well, what's the experience level someone needs to come in and take a class or be a part of it?
It's all beginner level, and so we say just get on the mat and come and do what you can. You build strength pretty quickly. That's been people tend to get scared of coming to the class because they see it, and I think they think that it's harder than what it is. One of my students, she watched for a year before she came in. She was like, I was so scared, I don't know why. Like, I should just get on the mat and do what you can. It's a lot of fun. And you get strong really quick just because we utilize every single muscle in the body every time. And we do a lot of core work, inner core work. So that's what you see a lot of the spiraling.
Yeah.
And it's really tight inner core, and we're engaging all of those internal muscles. The static shaking is to release the lactic acid buildup because we're doing so much cardio and burning out muscle
Interesting,
groups.
Man. It's so interesting to hear all that, because I'm telling you, watching that, you don't realize any of that's going on. I mean, just as an observer, what you're saying, I'm going, there's all these reasons why you would do these different things. And it just but what it looks like is just, it looks like freedom in a way.
It is. And that's why I say it's a practice that it needs to be experienced, not watched, so I can put the clips and you can kind of have an idea, but you don't really know what the full experience of the class is like until you get in there. And it's really for everyone. I have people who are 18 up through 65 that come to my class.
Okay.
I have men, I have women.
Do you? That's what I was going to ask. I was wondering if any men took the class.
Yeah, so I taught at PE where I kickboxed for a little bit, and then some of those members, Zach, who teaches there, he was in my class on Sunday and brought a friend, and so we've got a couple guys who come in. I've had some Buti Glow events, and the girls brought their husbands, and
that's cool.
You're going to get a workout for sure. And so, and I try to, when guys are there, since I can tailor it to, it's not choreographed, so I won't be as dancey, definitely will amp up the plyo a little bit and make you do some crazy stuff. But sometimes it's fun to have them do a little static shake.
Oh, sure. I mean, just to see what happens. I mean, I don't know. That was kind of, like I said, it kind of made me smile when I saw it. I said, I have just never seen this before. I mean, I've seen dance and different, all the parts, I guess, but not all together. One thing when I was doing a little research and I went to the website, I guess it's like the
Buti Yoga's.
Yeah. I noticed the lighting, even on that site, similar to the lighting that is in your video. Is that a part of it, like the ambiance of the room? Or?
Well, for me it is, because I have an infrared heat box that I put in the room. Hot yoga, I think, is better to loosen up muscle. I just like the feel of it.
Gotcha.
I also like the dark light, the lights off with the red in the room. I feel like it gets people into themselves more instead of looking at everyone else. And any yoga practice, we'll say yoga is about you on your mat, not comparing you to anyone else. But I think even more so in Buti, because of some of the moves, people can get really self-conscious. So the more that I can distract you from everyone else and you staying, in your own body, I think it just sets a better mood.
Well, that's something I wrote down, and I wondered how big a element this was, and it was being comfortable in your own skin.
Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it, and that's that's one of the things, like, you'll see wearing sports bras and little shorts. It has nothing to do with like, oh, let me just take off my clothes. It's like, it's hot. We're moving. So many women are so uncomfortable in their own skin and how they looked, and so it's a really big empowerment piece of it, is to say, I'm hot. I'm going to take off my shirt. You can see your movement better in the mirror. It restricts, having bulky clothing can restrict your movement in yoga. In hot yoga classes, majority of the time you'll see people in less clothes, just because that's part of the practice of yoga too, is to sit in the asana, not fidget with what's going on with you. So that's part of the practice. But in Buti in particular, it's about releasing that, appreciating your body and loving yourself.
That comes across, and again, that comes across before reading a single word. I mean, I try to be observant, and that's what I saw. And I guess that's part of why I wondered if men did it too, because men struggle with a lot of those same insecurities. I know I do, being comfortable in your own skin and not, I guess you said that just a second ago, and I didn't realize, I've never heard that before, but that yoga was about being as you on your own mat. I guess sometimes from an outsider, again, looking in, you can see the group element of it, and it kind of, someone like me who maybe has those issues where, you're not super comfortable in your own skin, that's frightening.
Well, looking for me, like, there's stuff that I can't do. If I was worried about what all the other Butis if I compared myself to them, I would be terrified and never get on the mat and think that I was terrible, So it's like knowing what my strengths are and that those are good, and that this is what the way that I teach it, and staying there and realizing I have strength, but I'm not the most flexible yoga, person. So I'm not going to be doing all crazy bendy things.
Yeah.
But,
that's good too for people who maybe aren't at that level. If you're at a beginner level, you don't want to push them too far. How do you regulate that? Do you ever, because you're pretty active. You're doing it. They're kind of, I'm assuming everybody's following along with what you're doing. It's a watch and do. It is.
So I do the class with you. I guide you through it. Before, if you've never taken a class, I'll talk to you about modifications and, how to get in proper alignment, because that's a big thing. The one thing with Buti is we move so fast. There's not a whole lot of time within class to tell you all those things. So for new people, I like to go through that before and then offer, modifications. There's always you never have to move within a posture. You can hold the posture. Any movement we do is an advancement. So that would be a step up.
How long is a class?
60 to 75 minutes. Sunday nights I like to do closer to 75. It just is a better feel, and I'll do closer to an hour on Monday nights because it's a little bit later of a class.
It does seem like it'd be a pretty awesome way to start the week, right?
I love my Sunday class. Like, it's the best. Just to finish off the weekend, or start the weekend off. It's just a great, just sort of reset. Yeah,
absolutely. I can totally see that. I couldn't help but think of my wife. When I watched, and I thought, man, she would really.
Y'all should come to a class.
I know. As I'm listening to you, and again, that's one of those things that I have been working on my whole life, and I don't know where it came from, but it's just that being comfortable in your vehicle. Being and what I mean, my vehicle, my body, being comfortable fully with who I am, all the parts, not just some of the parts. And so I've tend to. Maybe we all do it, lean on the parts that I'm more comfortable with and avoid the parts that I'm not. And so, but when I have to get into those territories of you're in a country, I guess, and get into that territory, it's like I can feel myself approaching that, a change. I tend to become different because I'm not as comfortable in these certain territories. So I'm always interested to do things that force me out of that, because that's always worked pretty well for me, to just go, okay, look, you have to start doing a thing to change the thing. You can't just wait on it.
And doing the things that scare you a little bit, that's kind of like, if it scares me a little bit and I'm not wanting to do it, think I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
And just see where it takes me.
And I'm happy, I know it.
You've probably heard me mention filming videos, building websites, creating logos, or building brands on this podcast. Well, there's a good reason for that. I'm a brand builder, and my brand is Parker Brand Creative Services. My team and I have built countless brands in the Gulf Coast region, and a lot of our work in the travel and tourism industry is experienced across the country and honestly the whole world. We have our specialties: web, logo, package, and whole brand design, as well as video production and photography. But the reality is, we function as a full-service advertising agency to businesses that don't really mesh well with larger advertising agencies or just don't want to have in-house creative departments. But don't listen to what I say. Just go to our website, parkerbrandup.com, and take a look at what we do. We're a show it, don't say it team. Okay, you should definitely say it too, but you know what I mean. That's parkerbrandup.com. We think sideways, we push forward, and we'll get your brand up.
So take this, you've earned it, a melody and chorus.
So ontology is the study of our way of being. And so we say that every human lives from these three areas of emotions, language, and body. And the intersection of those three is how you move in the world. So language, I talked about earlier, is that, it's not purely descriptive, we claim, but it's generative. So the words that you speak or how you live your world. You describe what's in the world, but it's not really what's out there. It's how you interpret it and what you're seeing.
Got that. Okay.
Emotions, every human lives an emotion. We're emotional beings. Our emotional centers were developed before, our thinking centers were. And we always are in emotion. Usually we're in a baseline that most people are not aware of, and you walk around and you view the world from that emotional state, right? So say someone who's depressed versus someone who's ambitious, what's available to you in those emotional states are different given the same circumstances. Not only do those emotions show up in the way that you move in the world, but also the way that you hold your body. So that ties in the body piece. So, you can look at Igor is a good example of like someone who's resignment, right? Like there's a physical, you can look at someone and kind of have an idea of what sort of emotional state they're in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But also from body, it's the internal biochemical stuff that's going on. Like what disease states do you have? What food are you feeding yourself? What's going on inflammatory wise? All of those things. Well, the intersection of those three is how you move in the world and how you view the world and how you see the world. So we coach to each one of those domains. And so when you say to get change, effective change in your life, you need to address all of those to really have any sort of substantial change.
Yeah, because it's like trying to spin something atop. If it's
Mm-hmm.
if it's weighted in too many of the wrong sides of it, and it's heavy, it's not going to spin properly. Mm-hmm. So, right, is that kind of what you're saying? There needs to be a balance.
Yeah. So, like, we could talk about, and I could explain to you, like, the language. I could say, like, if you were saying, like, I'm afraid to do this class, or I'm blocking myself from doing this. We could talk about the language, like how you're talking to yourself about it.
Sure. Okay.
But unless you feel the emotional shift of what that would look like if you actually did it and you felt it in your body, you may not be fully able to make that shift to do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
So.
I can see it in myself, and I know people in just the history of my life who I can see that there are definite blocks like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a matter of just taking that next step. But some people, that's very difficult to get through that and get over the cusp of that.
It's hard. It's just baby steps sometimes. And sometimes, like the smallest step, if it's just getting off the couch, like just doing one thing, just, writing something down, so it's coaching. Each person's different on what.
So okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I'm just very curious. So you're coaching people on an individual basis. This is a one-on-one situation?
Yeah, so I do coaching one-on-one. I've also done some like day workshops through part of this course. So my course finishes in January-ish, so I'm trying to see how, I would like to blend workshops that took that work plus yoga and this Buti Yoga that we're doing and combine them, because for me it's all one piece.
I see. So people sign up for this course. As you said, I'm trying to paint a picture here of what this course looks like. And I guess I'm navigating away from Buti Yoga because I actually didn't know about this part. Yeah. So does this over a period of time? They take this over.
So I'm in a course right now.
Okay.
To be a coaching. It's the international coaching certification through Ontology.
Okay.
And so I'll be a certified coach, and I'm coaching now individually for people with that. And so then they would come to me you would schedule a session with me and we would coach to whatever breakdown. So a breakdown is any oh shit moment, basically, we say. Like you're moving along life and something happens, and it can be positive or negative. So getting a job promotion for some people, there's some things that would change in life, right? Because time away from family, more money gives you different opportunity, whatever those things are. So
yeah, that's interesting. So I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff, because it just makes me realize there's so much out there for people to do to make themselves better. I mean, that right there, I've not heard of it before. And you can go to therapy, you can go to counseling, you can read, you can have faith in your religion or whatever practices you may have. You can do all these different things, and then this right here, it's sort of a three-pronged attack in a way.
Yeah, and I don't know of any other modality that hits all three. And so in our coaching approach, it's me, like, I just have a little bit more, we call distinctions in each one of these areas. I've done a lot of work on myself and study in language, emotion, and body. And so talking to you, I can maybe see something that you don't see, and, we can address that. And
so what's your path to that? I mean, how do you get interested in that?
So education for living has been in South Louisiana 30 so years, I guess. My parents did it when I was about 20 years ago. They went through it, and they still meet with the people that they completed it with once a month. They have women's groups and men's groups.
Education for living?
It's what it's called, yes.
Okay.
They're based out of Baton Rouge, and it's a 3-part series. So there's a stage 1, a stage 2, and a third, results program. And so about a year it takes you to complete all of them. They're weekend courses, long weekend courses. The results program is 6 weeks, but it just teaches you how to incorporate all the stuff that you've learned into your daily life. So trying to save my marriage, I finally went to it, and I went through the initial course, and it changed my life completely. And then the people who own education for living were looking for the next thing, and they came across Alan Sealer, who's in Australia, and he's leading this course to become a coach. And so they completed his 18-month course in Australia, and they brought him here last year. So this is the first course in the States to get people certified to be coaches in ontology. So I started last October. I mean, he's doing courses all over in Europe and Hong Kong and Australia and South Africa. And so this is the first one here.
That's interesting. So your parents went through this, which I guess I'm assuming that's maybe where you're beginning knowledge or interest in it.
Yeah, that's when it started. And I did, when I was when they did it, there was a youth. They have a youth program, so I did the youth program, and then I didn't want to get into all that emotional stuff when I was younger. I don't want to touch any of that. And so so when I was older and felt like I needed it in my life, I went back and did it, and life changer.
It's really interesting how many times we do that. I know I do that. I've done that, where it's something that my parents or a relative or just somebody in my childhood, it was something they did that I just whatever. Mm-hmm. And then later, you start to scratch the surface, the dust off of your own history, and you're like, there was this element in my life that I never really appreciated. Mm-hmm. And then go back and look at it again, and all of a sudden there's just treasure chests everywhere.
Treasure chests.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because with this work, you learn how to see, you become an observer of yourself and how you move in the world. And so, ultimately, at the end of the day, in any coaching session with me, it's me trying to show you how you can just observe yourself and say, why am I being triggered? Yeah. What's happening? Standards are a big thing, too. A lot of time we just live on autopilot, and we're doing things, and we're not even, what are your standards for relationship? What are your standards for your career? What are your standards? And if you don't, some people have no idea. And if you do know what they are, then where did they come from? Are those really yours, or did you take on societies or your families and are living from that space? And so it's just sort of trying to unpeel the layers.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about this yesterday, one of the guests on the show, and I was saying the same thing, that maybe not so eloquently, but that, where do things that we do come from? Why do we believe the things we believe? Why are we reacting? And I say we, I really mean me. And you're talking my language, because that is really my favorite hobby, is people, but also myself, and not in a selfish way. But I spend a lot of time looking inside my eyes in the mirror, asking myself questions. And one of the big questions is, who am I? Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm confused about it. I mean, I know who I am historically. Mm-hmm. but who I am historically, I can say that out loud and say, yeah, I remember my life. I mean, in a nutshell, I know the life I've lived. But beyond who I am historically, what does that mean? What's the groundwater like, so to speak? I can tell you Oran was born this day and he had all these things happen and here's the history of my life. But then what the things that radiate out from all those experiences and how they sort of saturate who you are and shift. And the other day, talking about things that we do, I was telling this story. I said, when I was a kid, and we were talking about poverty and the perception of being poor and how that affects children, and that when you're younger, you don't think about that really. When you're little, the idea of poor and rich, all that's really it's not something that's a part of your day-to-day life. But at some point, you're either going to be one or the other by somebody else's standards, and you begin to wonder, well, where do those standards come from and all that. But I remembered this story when I was a second grade, and it's funny how you can just remember every little detail of something that really flipped a lever for you. And I had a pearl snap cowboy shirt on. It had these red roses on it, and I loved that shirt. I thought I looked so good. And I was standing in the lunch line, and a girl said, "I like your shirt." And I proudly said, "Thanks. My mom got it for me at a garage sale." Yeah. And then another girl said, "Ooh, you're poor. Your mom buys your clothes at a garage sale." Now, fast forward to my 30s, that was my first really time ever hearing anything like that. I didn't realize till I was in my 30s, I was shopping at a store and I realized that I started looking at these cowboy shirts and I was like, I really like those shirts. And but I didn't own any. And then that memory came back and I thought, I do like these shirts. I've liked them my whole life. I started thinking about all the times I've seen people wear them. Start analyzing my own thoughts, and I'm going, this is a strange thing how I like this, but I have an aversion to it. And why am I avoiding this shirt style? And so I forced myself, literally, it's sad, but I forced myself to make this purchase, and I bought this shirt.
That's awesome.
And my wife, I'm not sure if we were married or if we were dating at the time, and I was telling her that story. I said, it's amazing what gets planted in you, and you don't even know. I said, but I've my whole adult life avoided this clothing style and had this strange love-hate relationship with it that I don't even know is tooling around in my brain. And when it clicks, I go, this goes all the way back to that moment, which I could put myself in like very viscerally, as if I'm in the second grade again.
And the magic of that too is if that's showing up in one place, that exact thing is showing up in so many other domains of your life. So then once you notice and you can say, aha, like where else is that? Then you can see where that might be limiting you in other areas or how it's shaping the way that you think in so many places. And
you're dealing with that directly.
And I thought it's interesting, if I just want to say too, like you talk about when you were 8. So we do a lot of chakra types stuff and Buti and energy, and your chakras are 7 and they're developed over 7 years. So your root chakra 1 to 7, you develop your sacral chakra 8 to 14. And we say that in Buti a lot of times it's getting back to that 8-year-old self before you were in society and before that shaped who you're supposed to be, and you started making shifts to what you thought you were or how you should behave or versus kids at school, teachers, how you wanted to fit in. And that's right at that 8-year-old person. And that's whenever your sacral chakra is developing. And that's our sense of identity, and,
it's interesting, who we are. Something can get like cross-wired, in that time period. And, when I go back and analyze any type of memory from that elementary school era, not really even so much junior high school, but that 7 to 10 year area, so many memories are so colorful, and the smells are there. I can feel the memory. I can be in the memory, but that changes as I get a little older. And I think it's because as you settle into patterns, like you said. I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I really want to peel those things away, just as exactly how you said it. Just get those layers off and figure out who I am outside of the standards that maybe were imposed on you without. A lot of times I hear people say, and on this show a lot, and I think it's just an instinct to say it, is say, society wants you to do this, or they want you to believe this, or, they're making you. And I've gotten to where I don't necessarily love that language because, and I'm guilty of it too, but I've stopped thinking of it that way. It's like, well, there's really no they that's making me, and society isn't really doing anything. I'm just sort of going along with sort of the way things are going. So it's not that society is choosing to force anything on you. It's just easier to go along.
Yeah. Well, it's just the background emotional state, the background, place that everyone's living from. And so you're just in the soup and, we're biological beings, right? Like
right on. Yeah.
From biochemistry ourselves, we're just looking for homeostasis, right? We just want to be homeostatic, for things to be smoothly. And so when you try to shake that up a little, that's where it gets a little shaky, and you got to step out of the box and that's hard to do. It's really easy to stay on autopilot and keep going the way that you are, but just to perturb yourself a little bit and say, where am I holding my back? I mean, if maybe everything's fine for you, but maybe there's something that you're wanting to shift. Maybe there's somewhere you're wanting to go. And if so, there's a way to get there. It's just looking at, you're holding yourself back.
Yeah, right on. I get that. I mean, I've kind of explained it to somebody one day. For me, digging around inside myself is like a knick-knack can that I keep in my toolbox. And I have cans like that all over the place. And it's like, well, here's this. I change a doorknob out, and after I fix the doorknob and this thing is done, sometimes there's little bolts and plastic fitters and things that are left over, so I throw them in the knick-knack can. Or if I'm working on a car and my button falls off my shirt, well, I'm going to sew it on later. I throw it in the knick-knack can. Well, after 10 years, that knick-knack can's got all kinds of stuff in there. When I actually need something out of it, I have to sift through all this stuff. And if I just reach down there, sometimes I'm going to poke my finger on a thumbtack.
Yeah.
And so for me, digging inside myself is like trying to get in that knick-knack can a layer at a time and start picking out the little pieces of glass and things. I don't really need this. And why am I hanging on to that? And just have the stuff in there that, it's still knickknacks, but they actually have value and they're important versus just junk.
Well, look, so one thing we say is like, I hate to say like positive or negative, but we have all these sides to us, right? So like the same side of you that like, or me, that makes me irritable or like cranky in traffic, right? Like you get mad, is the same one that's going to give me drive to like make something happen in my life. So it's not good or bad or right or wrong or anyway, it's just saying, being aware of what you're doing, right?
Yeah,
so if like I'm having a pissy day, I'm angry, like, and I know that, then I'm going to be in this moment, but I don't have to be if I don't want to be. And then once you can recognize those things, then your reaction time to like getting out of like a problem or a breakdown becomes shortened, and you can move on. And something that would keep you down for weeks, maybe, shortened to like a day or a couple hours. And so you can just move on to the next thing, and life just becomes it's the quality of the life,
Sure. Well, I mean, you talk about working with energies and chakras. I mean, it is a lot like energy work. I mean, you're working with for me, the way I've always kind of described that is a hot energy or a cooler energy. And I'm like, I can feel when something's a hotter energy, and usually it's a frustration or an anger, but that same feeling can sort of be pointed at something else and be utilized to accomplish a goal. Or I used to think that I had to deal with a lot of anger because it sort of runs in my family. I know that maybe sounds super lame. There's probably a lot more to it than that, but it runs in the family to be quick-tempered. And I never really liked what I saw. That it was very destructive, and I saw lots of bad things come from having quick-tempered people in your family. So I was like, well, not being quick-tempered has to be a choice. But I have to wrestle with that energy because I feel it like the rest of my family does, just bubble up. Where am I going with that? So, and so for a long time, I saw it as negative. I was like, oh, that's a negative energy. I need to quell that, squash it, subdue it, put it somewhere. And it was like just pressure building. And what I've tried to learn is that, and I do believe that's how I've come to see things, and it's helped me a lot, is that sometimes that energy is the energy of change. Right? It's like, well, this energy, it feels like a frustration, and I'm misidentifying it as anger. It's really frustration, but it's a power to make a change. It's wanting to push through to something else. Is that?
No, that's perfect. I love the way that you explain that. And so we've had a lot of talks throughout my course on anger. And for me, anger boundaries was something I'm terrible at. And anger is not something that I express very readily. It's not as available to me as it is to some people. And I have a problem setting boundaries in my life in general. And so there's a spectrum, anger is not just all in your face. There's a huge spectrum of where it can be, and there's positives of that. And so it's about finding the balances in those and utilizing, saying, what is this anger trying to tell me? Like, what is at the core of it? What's really going on? Is this trying to drive me to do something that I need to get done? Or am I just, trying to hurt someone in the process?
Yeah, right. There is like this weird human satisfaction, or at least we think it's a satisfying thing to want to subdue or hurt somebody, and anger seems to do that. But that, to me, is kind of like a bad drug. It feels so good and temporary to lash out, and a lot of times it is towards a person. And I don't know, that for me, it's something that scares me still. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I think that's definitely something that we all could work on, is just taking the energy and just using it for something else.
And just being aware of what's happening with you and where it's coming from and where you're wanting to go with it, and just take a moment to sit in that. And it doesn't have to be like negative. So for me, and my thing right now is to find the balance between wonder and ambition. Those are kind of the two things that I'm at. So ambition for me, my whole life has been there. I went to pharmacy school. Like anything I set a goal on, like I get there. But I'm also super laser focused. So 8 years going through school to get my doctorate, nothing else was happening in my life. I was just on that. And I've lived my life that way up until this point, but I'm missing out on a lot of things that could be available to me because I'm so laser focused on this end goal, that if I can figure out a way to sit back and wonder and just be in acceptance of where I'm at, and it opens you up to see things that maybe you wouldn't have thought would cross your path and take a step in a direction. So it's, I would say ambition and wonder, most people think are both great things to live in, but for me, ambition can be a negative space because I get too laser focused. I
do that too, to be honest with you. I tend to do it in like short doses of like high ambition, short project based ambition, where it's like, I'm going to do a really great job at this thing and I'm going to do it really well and focus all my energy on it. And I just dump every talent and brain cell I have into it, my whole heart. I told somebody else on the show, and it's partly why our logo's an anchor. I said, because it's a representation of who I've found I've become, is that I'm all in. Yeah. I throw the anchor over, and when I'm in something and I'm like, the anchor's over and the chain's going over, and sooner or later I'm going to get yanked over too. Yeah. But that's how I tend to do it. And I've learned to function with that, and I'm trying to figure out whether that's a good trait or a bad trait, and make it a good trait, because it can be a bad one for me too. I can get, like you said, laser focused to where there's like the train track, and the cow guard, I'm just barreling forward and everything's just flying off the tracks, and I'm just down that track. So that can be a bit destructive for me, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's just, it's all about awareness and saying, what is this trying to tell me? What am I doing? Is this serving me? Is there a different way that I can do this, that my quality of life might be a little bit better? And
that's where wonder comes in, right?
That's where wonder, yeah, absolutely.
I definitely like that too. I mean, to just daydream and allow myself to go places and say what's possible, and what else is out there, and who else is there to meet. And I don't know, that's something I think that possibly as we get older, we either don't do or we begin to do again. Like I find it's been cycles for me of like, I kind of make a revolution and I can almost feel it happening. Like, okay, it's time to put a bookmark in this, or close the book on this and pick up a new book, and it's time for something new. I tend to feel it. Now, do I always act on that? I don't. Then the truthful answer would be no. There are times when I would definitely say I should have, and I can feel it sometimes, like the wheel spinning past, and I'm like, oh, this moment's passing, and I should have grabbed that, and I just, I didn't, and I have to ride the wheel around again.
and see where you're going to land. Well, we talk about the drift of life, and it's like akin to being on a boat in the ocean, and you're just moving along, and you can only go where the next place based off of the decisions you've made and where you are, but you just staying on the drift and not trying to force things, and trust that the universe has got you if God's got you, whatever that is, and being aware of what's going on with you internally and just trying to stay true to your heart center.
Well, speaking of that, you said the word God, and it makes me want something I wanted to ask you. Is there a spiritual component to Buti Yoga?
Well, so yoga in general is not a religion, but it's spirituality, whatever
Sure.
spirituality you have. I mean, I was brought up Catholic, and I would say that I'm more spiritual than religious.
Sure.
I read up on a lot of different.
Sure, I'm the same way. Yeah, open, broad. You probably have a lot of interests in various.
Yeah, I'm really
wisdom
interested
traditions
in
and
and
religions.
anything that can give me any sort of wisdom. I'll take it all. So that you can connect to whatever spirituality it is for you.
Yeah, well, that's good. So it's open. Sometimes I think people are maybe off-put by that, possibly that they think that it's. I've heard this, and I guess I say people broadly, but I mean I have heard people say that about yoga. They're like, oh, well, that's more of a religion. And I'm like, well, no, it's not really. I mean, it's a practice, but it's not a.
It's not a religion at all. It's a practice, and it's about you're trying to just connect your mind body to your physical body, and basically what we've talked about, shedding the layers and finding out what your true center is. And for some people that's God telling them, and so that's connecting with God for you. For some people that is whatever that enlightenment comes from within, so it can take any form. So it's whatever form you make it. There's no one set.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, do you feel like the world's changing in that way? I mean, do you, in your lifetime, have you seen it change, like away from maybe a rejection of the self and the body, and seeing those as two different things? Like you have your spiritual life, and then you have your earthly life, and then it's sort of like those two things are separate, and one's to come, and this is right now. You're in this very secular life, you know what I mean? But then I don't know. I guess I've seen that in my lifetime. Let me see if I can explain what I'm trying to say. I'm not using my words properly. It's almost like there's two selves, and like when I was younger, I almost kind of felt like that was what I was picking up, that there was like, you have this time where you're going to be very secular and you're going to be focused on career and education and fitting into all of the things, the systems that we have. And then there will become a time, you need to remember though that you have a spiritual life, but that's to come, that's later. And everything you do here, you just have to do that stuff, but then you're going to get this other stuff later. And as I've gotten older, maybe it's just my perception changed, is that there seems to be more understanding now that this is very important. They're together. It's not a separate reality. It's a joined reality.
No, I agree. So my conversations with some people have been, I don't know if this is happening more society or just because I'm delving more into that it's around me more.
Sure.
And so I see it a lot just because the people that I surround myself with now and the community I've created myself, like this is open topics. We're all trying to grow and shed these layers and, become as... we say you can only be as spiritual as you are grounded. So it's really important in our practice. That's one of the Buti core values. So trying to be spiritual and connecting with whatever your higher power is, but also staying grounded in, the real world. But just having conversations like that with people happens a lot. But I think it's just because I'm attracting that now. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've wondered that too. Is it just my perception that changed? Has it always been that way? Because really, like you, I tend to explore through various wisdom traditions, and it's always fascinated me. And I love discovering the common ground between, and I go, this is ancient. This isn't new. It just feels new because you're discovering it at a point in your life.
I think what we're seeing too, like we talk, we're in this period of what's called a postmodern shift, and technology, like things are just moving so fast, and it's creating this overall sense of anxiety for people, just because of the fast pace of growth. We're connecting with cultures all over. Technology is. I mean, just think about the plane, right? Like how fast, and we can communicate with people all over. And we're just living in this space of anxiety. And so to get back, I think people are just looking for a way to combat that and to, this is not how I want to live, and trying to find. Yeah.
It's outpacing us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our natural ability. I think so too. I mean, I feel it just in my lifetime. And I'm sure people who are it's kind of like something my grandmother said. She said, I think we live too long. That's what she told me. And she didn't mean that it probably sounds negative, but I really think I got what she was putting out there. She's like, I think we just live too long. And what she meant in the larger scope of the conversation was that you're sort of wired a certain way in your youth to the pace of the world. And then when you live in a time period where that pace just changes so rapidly, mm-hmm. you're not wired for that change. You're not ready for that. And so the world begins to outpace you, so mm-hmm. to speak. And so for what I got from her is that you begin to feel like an outlander in your own, on the earth in a way. I mean, I really got that impression.
Well, I think that's why it's so important to stay grounded in like the work that I do, and especially yoga for me in this practice is to stay grounded in who you are and what you want and what your standards and where you want to be, because that is where it all originates from. So if you can stay grounded and centered in that, then you can handle whatever is happening around you.
So besides, you obviously are involved in a lot of mind work, body work, soul work. Mm-hmm. What do you do outside of those things to stay grounded? What centers you up? And really balances you out?
Yeah, meditation for me is a big one. I've been so busy. They say that the less time you have for it, the more you should. So I've been trying to incorporate that as much as I can. I also, art for me is a big one.
Really?
I don't think that meditation just necessarily has to be sitting there, and being quiet and breath work. It's whatever is meditative for you. So for some people that's running, some people that's journaling. I started doing, it actually was through EFL. We had to do a gratitude books, and so every day we would cut out pictures and for magazines and write 5 things that we were grateful for, and we did that every day for 6 weeks, and that sort of grew into me taking those into collages on canvases. And so now that's meditative for me, and just to have a couple hours where I can just put on some background music, go through magazines, create some art is super for me, that's it. Also, whenever I can take a fitness class where I don't have to think about what's happening and I can just be physical, that for me, that's where the meditative state.
Yeah, I get that. I also meditate and pray, and that time for me, that's walking. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a stroll, but it's with intent. I like to get up on early Saturday mornings and and walk with the sunrise, especially in the winter. I love the way it feels on my skin, and just to go out and see the world and hear the sounds before the world gets busy. It's a treat every time. Some days are more beautiful than others, but that's definitely very meditative for me. It's the sound of my walking stick hitting the ground, the way the ground feels beneath my feet. I just like that pace, versus being inside a building I know I need that. And when too much time goes by without it, I get out of whack. I know I do. I was talking to my wife about this, a couple of weekends ago. She had something to do and the kids were going to be gone. And that's a very rare thing where I've got a lot of hours with nobody and no sounds. So there doesn't have to be any TV. I don't have to go somewhere. And I thought, what I'm going to do? I have 6 hours. And I just drove down to the coast and sat on a piece of driftwood for 3 hours and just nothing.
That's nice.
And I was like, and my mind was it was I didn't even realize it was happening, but it does. It's just the way it goes. The sound of the waves just started stripping out all the anxieties and worries. And every little sound became more heightened. And I don't know, it's just good to do. I think we all could do that.
Yeah. If you can take it out all the distractions from world and really get centered in where you are, things don't bother you so much.
Sure. Well, living in an always on world is, very anxiety inducing. Even in our business, we're in advertising and it's definitely tied to a high anxiety timeline because every week there's bunches and bunches of deadlines. And now that's changed because advertising is 24 hours a day now. Yeah. So, and the way that people have changed just since we've been in business to now, and that's about 20-year time span. the way communication, and I mean the customer communicates now is, I don't know. I can honestly say I don't really love it because everything has become texting. Emails now look like texts, and texts look like texts, and then you're getting messages through social media that look like text. And my natural inclination is to resist that because I like writing and I like communicating, and so I still very rarely is anybody going to get a message from me that is shorthanded.
Yeah.
And so I tend to not like those things because I feel like it's beginning to invade everything, the quick nonchalantness of communication, I guess.
Well, definitely different experience to like talk to a person.
Oh,
one-on-one,
yeah.
pick up the phone and to have that connection with a human is, well, I mean, that's what it is to be human, right?
Sure.
And so it's really important, and so to make sure that you can still maintain that.
Yeah, well, just sitting at a table like we're doing, and that is lost in a lot of ways now, to like sit with intent to get to know somebody. I've compared this show to like first dates, or blind dates, is because you sit down and you're going, okay, I'm going to go to dinner with this person and we're going to just get to know each other, right? And ask all these questions. I said, but this is sort of like a super intense version of that because that's all you're doing. You're not having a meal. You're literally just sitting across from someone talking to them. And I was like, the more of these I do one-on-one like that, I'm learning so much about myself, what I don't know, which is what I'm really fascinated with, the big holes in what I'm aware of going on in the world. And then just the diversity in people. You've mentioned art, but then I've talked to 4 or 5 different artists back to back, and that in itself was just so beautiful because each one of them are painters. Each one of them approach art and have a reason for doing it that's completely different than the other. I mean, in large chunks. And I think, wow, that's so amazing because we just walk by their art.
Yeah.
And we just go, that's nice, or whatever reaction we have to it. But to meet the person and to see all the depth and the history that got them to the point to create art, and it can be so different.
It's interesting to get to know people's history. Like, it's a beautiful thing. But also to add to that, I would say, like, what I've learned is how much alike everybody is. We think that, I mean, that's the big thing. We think we're all different. We're all the same. We're all going through the same stuff. We're all living the same things. And if you can just realize that, connection can happen, Yeah.
And that's actually something I wrote down that I wanted to talk to you about was your testimonials. I mean, those are some beautiful testimonials.
Yeah, I was so happy with.
I'm amazed by that because I would say what we do, I mean, on one hand, I go, I hope we're bringing some kind of happiness or joy because we're building a brand and all that stuff. But I mean, on some level, it's real commercial and it tends to just kind of get chugged along in the whole engine of things. And so getting reviews, we've solicited reviews for years and we've gotten short 2 or 3 sentences. And I am thankful for the ones because they're always very kind. But when I see something like what you've got, and those are like real testimonials, did you solicit these?
Yeah,
or
just one night, I don't know how I just had an idea. I was like, I should get, it's about to be Thanksgiving, just, see if people wanted to, say why they were, liked Buti, and I wanted to highlight different members of the tribe and just, because Buti really is about, like, it's not about me, it's about all of us and us coming together and experiencing this practice together and growing together in whatever form that looks like. And so I just reached out to anyone who had taken my classes or some people have taken my classes and have moved away and no longer here. So I just reached out to whoever and offered it. And I got a lot of responses back, and some people didn't get back to me, and, but it's fine. We had a ton of them, and I was so pleased. And I really wanted to show the range of Buti so people can see it's for everyone. Yeah. No matter your fitness style, your age, your background, ethnicity, it's all encompassing. And that's what we're here, is to connect a community.
Well, it's definitely doing that. I mean, that was something that I thought, again, you're doing. And I can't help but put a marketer's hat on whenever I look at something like what you're doing, and I'm like, this is the right way to deal with social media. You're actually really creating community out of it. I mean, these are real people telling real stories, which I love. And I I saw a few people I knew, and I thought, man, these are just they're real testimonials. I mean, sometimes when we say testimonial, it immediately just reeks of advertising. It's like, oh, give me a testimonial. But this is testimony.
Yeah, because
It's very different.
When you take a Buti class, it's an experience and it's a feeling. And we are, we're drumming the ground, we're jumping up around, we're sitting in a yoga pose, you're releasing all of that stuff that you've been holding on to, and you feel amazing after a class. Some people might cry in Shavasana because we've gone through some emotional thing. Some people are excited and happy, and there's no way it's supposed to be. It's just whatever your body is releasing. And so those are real emotions and experiences people have. And so that's just what they're commenting on. So it's beautiful. It
is. And the freedom that they're saying a lot of the stuff with. I mean, it's not just the short and sweet, like I like Buti Yoga and XYZ and the end. I mean, there's some real personal stuff in there. And I love that.
And that's really, there's a Buti forum that we have with anyone who does. There's thousands of people on it, and that's what it is every day. It's a community of people out supporting each other, talking about those kinds of things, and connecting. Really, that's what it's about. It's connecting, and that's what's been lost, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that what you're doing with that, and other people are doing, really in the community, is exactly what I'm looking for. People want to connect with other people, and I think in connecting with other people, we start, just like you said, we start to see those common things, and we start to go, oh, I'm actually okay. It's okay to be a little this or a little that, or maybe that anxiety I have isn't so strange after all, or my fear is someone else's fear. And not that you want the fear to grow, but sometimes when you get the camaraderie, that fear doesn't have a home to hide in anymore. Well, one of the biggest lessons I got from going through the course initially, my coaching course, was the walls that we show up with. I had really bad social anxiety. And so once I realized that everyone was showing up with the same walls, and it was just because of the vulnerabilities that they were trying to hide. Once you realize they were all showing up with that, and it's like, if we can take those walls away and just connect, personally, how much more our relationships can grow. So we start off the weekend, the first EFL weekend is like a Friday through a Sunday. And one of the first things they have us do is stand face to face with someone you've never met, face to face, and it's the most uncomfortable thing. And you step by the end of the weekend, you're doing the same thing and giving everyone hugs and not feeling uncomfortable at all. And the only difference that happened between Friday and Sunday was conversation. That's the only thing. There's nothing more than that. And so if you can just take that approach with people and just realize we're the same person, I just want to get to know you. I'm not going to try and put up any fake layers or walls of what I think you want to see or what I think I'm supposed to look like. If I just know who I am and can be from that space and can connect with you from your space, then it's a beautiful thing. No, I totally agree. What's always helped me with that is mystery and not knowing. There's sort of a feeling, I think, that's sort of out in the world that you should look like you should have the answer. You shouldn't look weak. You should. One for me. A hard one to overcome. Yeah. I'm that way too. And it's not that I want to be, but coming at the world from a more humble and softer direction, where I just go, look, I don't know, and I don't have the answer, and I'm not always going to be able to succeed, and I'm going to fail, and I'm going to fall. And I don't have to be beautiful, by the world's standards, whatever that is. That to me has helped me a lot, because all that just goes away. All those things dissolve, and I can approach people differently, because I still have all that things that I just go, why am I judging this? Or why do I have this feeling? That's very important to me to figure out why I'm feeling something. Because a lot of times it's not based in reality of any kind, not a real. It's just farce. I'm like, well, I have no reason to feel this about this. We live in stories. I don't have a history with it. I don't have an experience with it. I just have a feeling, and I don't know why. Well, and I think too, we live a lot from the shoulders up. Generally, we're in our heads a lot. We're thinking about everything. Sure. We're running through stories, creating scenarios, and we just don't get in our bodies. And a lot of times emotions are felt in your body. And so I think if you can get out of here and get, down into your body, whatever way that is for you. For me, it's yoga, kickboxing, meditation. But just to be aware of that and how it feels, then it takes you to a different space. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it's one of those, that's how I feel about the earth. When I take my shoes off and stand on the ground, not concrete, but in the dirt or in the sand, to me, there's something changes, a circuit gets formed. And it's one of my favorite things about the Buddha's enlightenment story is, when Mara's throwing all these temptations at him, and it's everything the world's going to throw at you, when he just touched the earth as his witness. And I love that, because I'm like, yeah, like skin on ground, like awareness of your body, and just like that you're on this planet. Something about that, there's just like a power in that just dissolves away all this other junk that we can layer on.
And just have, like, it's all within you. Like, it's just you there on, your feet on the dirt, in the ground. It's you. And that's like what Buti, like it's within you all along.
That's what I see. That's one of the things, I guess, that made me smile about what I was seeing on your feed, was exactly that. And I guess it goes back to that competence and being comfortable as a human being in your own body and your own skin. I just saw power in that, and just sort of freedom, I guess, again, to sort of shuck off a lot of stuff and just go, I'm touching the ground. I mean, there's no shoes, and it's just skin on air and just moving. I don't know. It was something really, years ago when I was in my 20s, I used to do Tai Chi. And there were these canals we lived out in the country, and there were these canals, and I would sneak through the fence and go walk way out on those canals. And I loved going out there to do Tai Chi. It was just, I'd take my shoes off, and it was just the sun on my skin. And there was just something special about those times. They kind of hold a place in my history as being special, because and I haven't had that again since that. But there was something special about that, for sure. Just moving and feeling what's going on inside of you.
Yeah, and even like, so for Buti, like we do training weekends, and I recommend people who even don't want to be an instructor to go to the weekend trainings, because they're so powerful. Just because of how, one, physically hard, like Buti is a challenging practice. And so going through the manual the first day is really physically taxing. Some people want to give up, but they show up the next day, and it's hard. It's nerve-wracking to get on your mat and demo, especially people who are not used to, even yoga instructors who are used to a choreographed class. And this is not choreographed. You're just going up, and you're like, am I going to know what to do for 10 minutes? Just all the things that go through your head. And one of the girls in, she is from Scotland. She was at the London training, and she said, I've never felt more powerful today as the day I gave birth to my child. Like, being able to get on this mat and do this, and work through all the fear of me wanting to leave yesterday and get through here.
Wow.
And do this. And so, I mean, those are experiences people are having like every weekend.
And you're getting to be a part of that.
Getting to be a part. It's so beautiful.
I bet. And then to hear it, I mean, you're actually hearing those testimonies. There's something special about seeing. I mean, it's nice to do your work and step back and just not have any involvement, but there's something really special when you get to, I don't know, see that you following your passions and your interests have helped somebody else. And that's such a nice thing. I don't know. I love that.
Yeah. It's like, I want to share what as many people, what I've come, my life has changed. I've come a long way, and it's like, if I can get where I've been to here and do the things that I'm doing, anyone can. There's nothing special about me. And so I want to share whatever those things are with everyone else, and share this practice, and like, let's all grow and live.
See, that's a beautiful thing, what you just said right there. I think if we all took that approach, it would make things so much easier. You just said, there's nothing special about me. I think so often when we see somebody doing something, and it's maybe just the way we've all been geared, is to lift that person up and say, oh, they're special, they're different than you or me. I can't do because they are. It's just the weird pyramid and a pedestal that we've created. But coming at things and saying, look, I'm just a normal person, just like anybody else, and you can do what I'm doing too if you just do this. That's a beautiful thing, because it's approachable. It's very, you can come in from a linear direction. You don't have to like go up and climb really hard. And then that person is there with you to say, yeah, I want to share it with you. I'm not hoarding knowledge. I'm sharing knowledge. I'm sharing what I know. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We did this thing on the show. You said you hadn't listened to it before, but that fishbowl right there.
Okay.
And so these are questions that some of them I've put in there, but a lot of them are people who listen to the show. They put questions in there about living a good life, or maybe things they would just think they'd like to know about anybody. And so what I ask everybody to do is to pull 3 of them out and then hand them to me, and then I'll read them and we'll discuss them.
Okay. Let's see.
Now, the last 4 or 5 shows, it's strange. There's a lot of questions in there, but they've drawn the same question.
Really?
Out of all those, yeah. And I almost kind of started thinking, did I put too many in there? But I know I didn't. So I don't know. We'll see if it happens. No, this is actually
different.
Different. Okay. Okay. So what's the most surprising thing that you hear people say about you, if you ever do?
Well, like, I'll just go back to what you said today. You said I was sitting here talking like confidently and eloquently, and that's usually not how I feel internally. I think like I've done a couple workshops through yoga and with the coaching course, and I'm usually like a mess inside, like all the stuff that's going on, and people say that it doesn't come across that way, or that I appear more confident than what I feel. So
that surprises you?
Yeah.
Funny, because I would answer that question the exact same way.
Really?
Yeah, totally. You've said social anxiety. Look, I mean, I'd say 80% of the people who's been on the show have said that, and everybody's been very articulate and powerful presence, but yeah, I'm the same way. I'm a mess inside when it comes to what's going on inside is not what's coming out all the time, and it takes work. I mean, it takes like real work.
It's like I'm not going to let that stop me either. And we talk about this. I train at PE, and Josh does kickboxing there, and Zach does the conditioning classes, and we've talked a lot about how people will get in their heads about not going to the gym, or like, you have to have a certain mindset to work out, or we all have this special brain. It's like, no, we fight like every day, like it's not easy to get there. We just know how good it makes us feel. And so, but it's a mental struggle every time I'm in the gym. Like for me, even just to run a mile, like I'm coaching myself the whole time, like keep breathing.
Keep breathing. Yeah.
And so it's not easier for, it's just, everyone has those same mental things, but it's just pushing past that and saying it's there, but I'm not going to let it inhibit me.
Now, I totally agree. And I have learned a lot from pushing through, that it's taught me that, hey, that even if something's making me afraid, I can push through. Now, I still have things I still have to work on with that. But yeah, with the social speaking, I don't know. I would say I've pushed through, but there's certain places where I am more comfortable now, but there still are certain scenarios where I'm like, I'm still not quite through the woods on that. There's places where I can still, at this point in my life, where I go, look, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. I'm not even sure I've got the...
Well, we're on a journey, right? So we talk about too in my like there's the scales of learning. So you start as a beginner, an advanced beginner, you become confident, proficient. There's probably another one in there, like a master and then a virtuoso, right? So, and that's in every domain. So, I mean, you can be like proficient in one thing and a beginner in another and advanced and so it's like just
they're not all just floating up together.
And so we're growing and learning and
oh sure. Well, I mean, heck, I mean, I can, if I'm being honest, there are still various things in my life where I'm still very much a little child. And Same. I'm very aware. I'm still a little bitty young boy in these situations, certain little things. And
so then not to beat yourself up about those and be like, just realize like, yes, I'm a beginner here. I don't have to know everything. And,
yeah. I mean, the life you've led, I mean, and you can learn new things, but I mean, some things just take a little longer if you're going to, and especially depending on what your path was and how much exposure you've had to something. So yeah, totally get that. Well, I get that. I mean, that's a good answer because I say good, it's an answer and it's definitely something I can relate to. This is interesting. This hadn't been asked before. What type of people scare you?
What type of people scare me? I'm not scared of any people.
That's awesome. That is good. That's amazing.
Like, I don't have that experience. I'm really pretty open with anyone that I talk to. I'm really interested to get to know whatever their story is. I've never come across someone that scares me. Yeah.
What about someone that, so you don't have any kind of an aversion then where you're like, maybe I should avoid this? If somebody's behaving a certain way or who has certain characteristics, do you ever
probably do more of that? I said I have an issue with boundaries.
That's your anchor. Your anchor. Yeah. Okay.
Because I dive in. I want my natural instinct is to try and help someone. So people that I probably should be scared of, or I tend to dive in with them to try and help them out. I grew up really poor. We killed the food we ate and, didn't have very much. And now my dad has been quite successful. So I've been around people from very poor to very, very high up. Yeah. And they're all the same. Like, I don't see people in a different light. Like everyone.
That's really a beautiful thing. It really is. I mean, not everybody's wired that way. again, being honest, I haven't really thought about that question, but I'm sure if I sat down and thought about it long enough, I could probably come up with some archetypes that have certain characteristics that probably trigger fear. But I think some of that comes from just childhood stuff, if I'm truthfully. I mean, I can probably pinpoint it's probably some things that went on at home, or maybe encounters that were negative and they just left a little residue in there. But yeah, I could probably do that. I wouldn't be able to say for sure. I would say probably for me in that question, it might be just hotly angered folks. That tends to trigger something in me. Things where I go, that's an overreaction to the situation, an unwarranted, unjust anger. Just seems like it's out of nowhere. That kind of stuff, like an explosion. That stuff really freaks me out a little bit. I tend to want to take a few steps back when I see that personality, and that's a judgment too. I mean, that person that could be totally wrong, but those little triggers are in me still. I'm sure I can definitely see that somewhere. It's really interesting that you don't have that. I mean, because
I'm trying to think, like situations where I've been with people who are super angry, I still usually stay right in it and try. I'm trying the ones to calm them down. People who are really, really resigned and really down. I would say those are harder for me to connect with, but I'll stay right there with them.
Okay.
But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Wow. Because I can think of it without getting too far off into it. I've only had one really hot interaction with somebody who was really angry in the last 3 or 4 years. And again, I said my family is kind of hot-tempered, and so I could feel the hot-temperedness of it coming up in me. Like I was like, "Whoa!" It's like a fight back type of thing that was starting to rise up. So in trying to quell this whole situation, I had to fight that inside myself first of all, because I knew where it would go, and then also I have a very hot-tempered person in front of me that you're trying to verbally cool down. I remember that being a very challenging 5 minutes, and it lasts about 4 years for sure. And I guess that may be one of the times where that's another thing I guess I have an inclination towards, is to step in towards things that even though I have an aversion to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if I said
Absolutely.
that right.
Yeah, and for me, it's setting the so that's what has been my work, is boundaries because I will step in with people that maybe not be the safest or the best for my overall well-being, because I don't really put those filters or boundaries on. And
have you always been that way, or did that change? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of been my thing. So I'm working this stage of my life to be a little bit better at that.
Interesting. So it's fascinating answers. I'll be interested to hear this one too. What steals your joy?
What steals my joy?
And don't tell me nothing.
No, I'm not trying. Because I try. I'm in this work. I've been in this work a long time, so I'm always in this self questioning mode, and what if I'm not happy. What steals my joy is if I'm not able to be physically active.
Gotcha. Okay.
I can say one thing. So I went to Scottsdale for a training for yoga, and I came back and I had a week off, and I like to travel a lot. I go to Europe as much as I can, and I had a week off where I was here, nothing to do by myself, and I realized that was terrible for me.
Really?
For me to not be doing things, and
total downtime.
Total downtime is not good for me. I don't think there's probably to find some balance in that would be good, but
okay.
If you're into astrology at all, I'm a Libra. My rising and moon signs are both air signs, so I'm really all over the place and move a lot. So if I'm kind of stuck, that steals my joy.
Yeah, I understand that. I like downtime, but I can, for me, there can be a little too much. And as much as I say this a lot, I may have said at the beginning of the show, I love people, but I'm scared of people too. And so I find that people are my biggest joy thieves, but they're also the biggest injectors of joy for me too. So it's I'm going to get both. I just have to be willing to dive in, because it's both things. Yeah, because negative encounters hurt my heart. I'm I'm a heart person. That's just who I am. I mean, I like to think, but I feel too. And so, yeah I,
have you ever heard of Enneagram?
Maybe. I don't.
Enneagram is like there's 9 like personality types that people generally fit into, and you're primarily one, and then you can lean towards other ones, but 3 of them lead from the head, 3 of them lead from the heart, and 3 of them lead for the gut. So that would be interesting to find out. If you're saying that you lead from a heart, those are 2, 3, and 4s that lead from their heart space.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's for sure me, and I can, that causes pain. I've had to. That's something I've learned to accept is the pain, because I've actually come to kind of treasure it in a way, not in like a sadistic way, but like when I have emotional pains or sorrows, I feel like that's changed for me. I mean, those things actually I find really a lot in them that I cherish, in a way.
You learn from those things. Like even I'm like, okay, so I hurt my elbow. I'm in this space where I can't do what I want to do. What's it trying to tell me? What am I trying to learn from this? And the emotional states too, we learn from. You have to go, so we have to go through sorrows to truly appreciate the good things in life. And
yeah, my wife I can't think of the name of it now, but it's a Japanese art where they take a broken bowl and they repair it with gold, and she had posted something about it, and I had read about it not too long before that, and I thought I loved that because that's actually really how I kind of would say I feel about sorrows and pains now. It's like, those cracks are beautiful. They're the patina of the joy in a way, so to speak. I don't know how else to say it, I mean,
and then for me too, like I said I live in ambition a lot, and so for me to, when I'm having those when I'm feeling like sad, to allow myself to sit in that space is difficult. But just to sit there and say, what is this trying to tell you? What is that you need to do? Those are the important things.
God, I totally get that resonates with me 100%, because I actually like feeling sad, because sometimes when I don't know, it's like a reflective state. I mean, to feel sad to the point of tears, and that's something I've always wondered about. I mean, I wish there was sometimes I could plug into somebody else who's crying or going through a sorrow, because I'd love to, just like plug in and be able to feel that the way they're feeling it, because the way I feel it is God, I don't know, that's a strange opposites. That's a weird thing, because as I'm saying it, I'm going, for me, sadness almost sometimes feels like a joy. I don't know how to say it.
Well, no, I think that's a great way. We talk about emotions, and we all assign these things that anger is good or bad, sadness is good or bad, like ambition's good or bad. Well, who's to say that they are,
Right.
And so
right. Yeah. I don't want to throw it into say, sad, bad.
Yeah.
Right,
and so there's beauty in that. And, it's an emotion. You're a human and you're going through it. And for you to be able to find beauty in something that.
Yeah. For me, that really came after my dad passed away. And that was just a different. Everybody, if anybody's listened to every episode of the show, this always comes up, because it was like a trigger, just a transformative sadness. It was very particular. It was very different than anything else I'd ever felt. And it was one of the times in my life where I could say I allowed myself to sink into it and not go, I'm going to drown in it. And I've heard people say, don't drown yourself in your sorrows. But this was more like I literally want to sink to the bottom of this and feel surrounded by it. And it wasn't a destructive force.
So when I was going through my divorce, I was by myself in Dallas, and my ex was an addict. And so there was a lot of things that happened with that. And so I had a lot of that sadness of just like real moments of allowing myself to be in that despair. And there was a lot of growth that happened for me in allowing myself to experience those, to like hit those rock bottoms, to let that experience be what it was for as long as it was, and then pick myself up and, try and do something post that. So I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. When I've had to visualize that, it's almost like sitting at the bottom. You see these people like in a video of someone who's holding their breath, and they kind of blow the air out and they sink to the bottom of the pool. And in a way you're going, they can't hold their breath forever. But when you do, but for the moments that they are down there, it looks like, wow, that looks super peaceful. That feeling of just sitting at the bottom of the water. eventually you're going to have to come up for air. That's really how I visualize that type of sadness. It definitely, because you eventually have to get out of it. You have to come out of the water.
And your body's not going to let you stay there for, you know, in those truly despairing moments. Like there's only so long that physically you can embody that.
That's right. Yeah. It does now a different type of sadness for me. And I guess it's just is when I see somebody sink down into sadness and they can't get out, and it's not transformative. It's actually just destructive. It's trying to drown them. You know, that's a whole different type of thing. And I guess that's kind of what I meant about I sometimes wish I could plug in and take a little peek at what that looks like, because I haven't felt that. And I don't know, just interesting. It interests me.
So that's a big piece too, like with the coaching, you know, that can help, because someone who's stuck in that, like sometimes they're stuck in their emotion and they can't get out of that emotion, but maybe some languaging or so for them, body stuff is really important. So making some shifts in body, there's a lot that, you know, if you're willing to take a couple steps with me, might be able to help you a little.
Well, speaking of people getting with you to do those things, how do they find you and what you're
Facebook,
doing?
Elizabeth McDaniel, Buti with Elizabeth. I'm on Instagram at elizabethmarie.yogi.
Okay.
My phone number's listed there. If you want to text me, message me. Email is emmcdaniel@hotmail.com.
Is that the same way to get in touch with you about the coaching?
Yeah, it's all the same.
Okay. And well, I mean, I like to end the show usually to say something about how somebody's doing good in the community. But I guess just talking to you, I would say what I've discovered and listened to you is that in trying to change your life and changing your life after you went through something, you're actually now changing other people's lives, which is an awesome thing. I mean, that's good, right?
Yeah, that's awesome that you say that. So part of the EFL work is you come up with like a purpose statement, and my purpose was to empower others to happiness and success through my integrity, support, and perseverance. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so
that's the mess. Yeah, well, that's good to hear, because that's what it sounds like you're doing. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to have to think about checking this out for myself and my wife
y'all
too.
Should come and check it out.
Yeah, because it really, again, it puts a smile on my face for some reason.
It's so fun. And it really, I mean, it's a hard workout, and because of the music, and it's done so fast, like by the end, you're like, what did I just do? And I just hit everything, and it's a lot of fun.
That's what, look, we can all use a little bit more fun that actually is good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Oran.
Oh, thanks for coming. I enjoyed it.
Me too.
And I love you just